Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, I hope you guys are doing great and I hope you guys are doing well. Today we are speaking mainly on the comparison between the Bible as well as the comparison with the Quran. We all know the Quran mostly is comprised or consisting of surahs, which can basically be said to be songs, right? So in this video, I am comparing the first book, the first page of the Holy Quran and the first surah, which is Surah Al-Fatiha, and I'm comparing it to the first book. I wanted to use Genesis, but I decided otherwise. I was going to use a song as well, which was the book of Psalms. So comparing the book of Psalms, which is the first chapter or the first page of the book of Psalms, together with the first page or the first chapter of the surahs, which is Surah Al-Fatiha. So Psalm number 1 as well as Surah Al-Fatiha. So without further ado, let's go and let's get it. Enlightened Truth TV. Now, to get this video started, the most simplest thing, the most obvious thing we recognize between these two surahs as well as this psalms as well, we begin to see that all of them or both of them actually have less than 10 verses, less than 10 ayahs. The Surah Al-Fatiha has 6 ayahs, or let me say 6 verses, as well as the Psalms, which is Psalms 1, only has 7 verses, right? So they are very short, which means they are straight to the point. Hence, I tried to really compare them and actually see and get a sense of which one might be more, I don't want to say more powerful, but which one has a greater message as far as its deliverance is concerned. Now, I both have my Quran here as well as my Holy Bible, right? I'm about to do a comparison between the two. The first one being, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm going to start with the Bible. I'm going to start with the Quran. Let me see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. All right. Cool. We're going to start with the Holy Quran, looking at Surah Al-Fatiha, which has 6 verses on it. We're going to read it and we're going to try and analyze it and actually get the sense of what it is talking about and what the message actually is according to the Holy Quran. So many of the surahs that we find in the Holy Quran will begin with the most obvious, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, right? Which basically means in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. In other words, the beginning of the surah, it begins by acknowledging the power of God. It begins by acknowledging who God is. It begins with establishing exactly who are we addressing in this surah? Who are we addressing in this song? Who are we speaking to in this prayer? So that is very important to note, that the Holy Quran really does give emphasis on many verses, on many chapters, on many ayahs. It does give emphasis to the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now going further, verse 1 says, praise be to Allah, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, right? It also continues in that regard to tell you exactly who it is speaking to. Let me read all of this surah, let me read all of this and actually explain it further to say that what am I getting from reading this surah? What is it actually saying to me? What is the main message that we are getting from this surah? Okay, ayah number 2. Most gracious, most merciful, Master of the day of judgment, you do we worship, and your aid do we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, right? Those whose portion is not wrath and who do not go astray. And that is the entire surah. That short, that straight to the point. And in me reading these ayahs, I can tell you that this is more a prayer. This is a beautiful prayer to start a powerful book such as the Holy Quran, because it gives emphasis on who Allah is. If you are not a Muslim, if you are somebody who does not know anything about the Islamic religion, and you were to come across a Holy Quran like this one, and you are beginning to read through it, whether you are reading it in the original text, which is Arabic, or whether you are reading it in the English translation or any other translation that might be there that I do not know anything about. If you are reading it, you begin to see that it emphasizes on exactly who the book is going to speak about. who the book is going to tell you about, who the book is actually teaching about, which is Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And in all of these 7 ayahs, in all of these 7 verses that I'm seeing here, actually I'm beginning to realize that it's the Psalms that has 6 verses, and it's the Holy Quran that has 7 verses when it comes to these specific books that I'm talking about. I know I said that the Quran has 6, but the Quran on Surah Al-Fatiha actually has 7. That was my mistake. It definitely goes into detail as to who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in a person's life. That is why it says the most gracious and most merciful. Who is he gracious to? You. Who is he merciful to? You. You do we worship. Who's we? It includes the people. It speaks about you and you and you. And it speaks about who else? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means the relationship. This book is mainly based on the relationship. This first chapter that I'm reading speaks to a person to say that there must be a relationship between you and the Creator. Subhanallah. If there is no relationship between you and the Creator, that is when the problem will begin to rise. So that is very powerful. Now let us go into the Holy Psalm. Let us go into the Holy Book, which is the Holy Bible, right? Okay, so the first book, which is Psalms 1, right? I did explain that I was going to speak about Genesis, but I decided to talk about something else, which is the book of Psalms, because these two are both actually prayers and they are both actually songs, right? Like I said, it has 6 verses, or you can say 6 ayahs on it. And the Bible that I have right now with me, it really has titles as far as each Psalms is concerned. And this one, it says the godly and the ungodly. It tells you exactly who it's going to speak about. The godly and the ungodly. It makes a distinction between the two. So if you were an unbeliever reading the Bible or reading the Psalms, especially the first chapter, which is Psalms 1, you begin to see that you are going to get a distinction when reading this from the godly people and the ungodly people, right? Let me read all of it. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law doth he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaves also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doth shall prosper, right? The ungodly are not so, but are like a chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore ungodly shall not stand in judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. Like I said, from the title itself, it already told you what it's going to speak about. But what I'm missing from this, all of this, the godly and the ungodly, what I'm missing from it is, where does indeed the relationship come in? As we have read in the Holy Quran, we saw that it speaks about you in the relationship. Now, when it speaks about the law of God, that you must delight in his law, right? Where does it put an emphasis on relationship? That is where I am missing it. Because now when you say somebody is godly and somebody is ungodly, yes, you have spoken about the law, that the law is the one that's going to make one godly and the other one ungodly. Why? Because the one meditates on the law and the other one does not meditate on the law. And therefore the ungodly will not stand in the judgment of God, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. You are making a distinction as far as people are concerned. But what we are missing from the Psalms, what we are missing from Psalms 1 particularly, is indeed the point of a relationship. The ungodly not having a relationship with God, but the godly having a relationship with God. Instead, what we are finding here is the godly being differentiated from the ungodly by merely the word of God, by merely the law of God, by merely this book that I have in my hand right now. As far as it's speaking about God himself, exactly, that is what we are missing from this psalm. And that is what we missed on the Holy Quran, which was the differentiation between the people who would know God, who would know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from those who would not know. So these two books, which is the Psalms as well as Surah Al-Fatiha, the first chapters, we are missing key points as far as the introduction to the books are. But it doesn't mean in any way, in any sense, one is far greater than the other. one is far more knowledgeable than the other. Because if you were to read the entire books of the Psalms, right? I don't know if somebody has done that. I know I have, but I'm not sure if somebody has done that. I have done that countless times. I have read the book of Psalms from 1 until the end. I'm still trying to read the entire Quran. It's going to take a while. But even in that, when you begin to read from Psalms 1 until the end, you begin to also find these elements I spoke about. Who God is, the relationship between yourself and God, as well as the ungodly people and why they are being differentiated between God and the godly people, right? In the Quran also, you can read all of it. You will get to that point whereby you find exactly what I'm speaking about. It's going to be clear. It's going to be visible to you. You will see exactly what I am talking about. I don't know how you saw this video. Please do me a favor. Drop a like on it. Leave a comment as well and tell me how you felt about the first book of the Psalms. I was going to read the first chapter of the book, which is the Holy Bible, but it really wouldn't make sense because the first chapter of the Holy Bible is a historic fact. It's a historic revelation, a historic storytelling. And therefore, when you read the first page, the first book of the Holy Quran, it speaks to exactly the essence of the book. So when going to Psalms, I found that also it might have the same element of speaking exactly to the essence of the book which I have, which is the Holy Bible. This is just my opinion. I might be wrong. I don't know how you feel about it. So please hit me up in the comments and tell us how you feel. Also drop a like on the video. It really, really helps a lot. Share these videos with maybe your friends, your family members, people you might feel like they might actually have something to contribute to the channel, or they might actually learn something from this channel. Much love. Peace.